You know your lifestyle. You know what you are doing. You know what it's all about. Are you inscribed with God in your doing? Show yourself approval. I know what God expects of me. First of all, each and every one of us knows right from wrong. This is something that nobody actually had to tell us. We understand right from wrong. We understand that there are facts in Jesus. There are proof in Jesus. Jesus is good. Jesus is right. There's nothing bad about Jesus. We know all of this. And every time we find ourselves in God through Jesus Christ, less problems we have. We're going to run up on problems here and there, but put it in God's hands. But when you are inscribed with God, whereas you have a relationship with God through Jesus Christ, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. Because you are doing what God inquired of you to do. Show yourself approval. If each and everybody that are involved in God through Jesus Christ, if you would show yourself approval according to the ways and means of Jesus, you wouldn't have no problem with dealing in life. I mean, just look at it. If everybody what says that they believe in God through Jesus Christ and they are showing themselves approval, all of the things that we see going on in this world today, it wouldn't be going on. Churches on every corner. We getting up going to church, but yet we still want to do what we want to do. We are going to church. We're getting involved in church. We're becoming workers in the church, servers in the church. We're doing all of these things, but there are some things that we refuse to let go. You can't serve God in yourself. If you're going to be a child of God, you got to accept God as a whole. And once you accept God as a whole, that is let each and everybody know there's something about you got to let go. You see, you can't continuously to be the same as who you were before you accepted God. Once you have accepted God, there's a lot of things about you got to let go. You can't keep holding on to bad things and yet say that you is a child of God when you know you are wrong, but yet you'll say that I'm a child of God. I work in the church. I pay my tithes. I serve my duty in the church. But what about your lifestyle? Because other people are watching you as well of what you're doing. Therefore, once we examine ourselves, and if you see something that shouldn't be there, you ought to ask God to help you take it out, because you can't do it on your own. We can't change our ways on our own. People have habits. Some got gambling habits. Some got drug habits. Some got chasing habits. We all have had habits that we had to let go for the sake of God. But in order to be right with God, you got to let some things go in your life. You cannot serve God and yet be the same as you were before you accepted God. You can't do it. You can't serve God and still be about who you were. You got to make a change. In order to make it in life, to make it on the other side, you must make a change, because God is not going to take no mess, accept no mess on the other side. No way. God is not going to allow all this junk and mess that is going on this side to happen on the other side, because this is the reason why Jesus came and died for each and all of us, that we would make a change in our life so that we can be a part of God through Jesus Christ. You see, God had his hands on Paul. And this is what Paul was letting them know, that God had his hands on him. Then he said, how that Jesus Christ is in you, except ye be reprobated. So in other words, that letting us know that if that is so, you're not right. Think about it. Every time something go on, if you got something bad to say about what's going on, you better check yourself. Especially with what's going on in the house of God. When things are going on in the house of God and you always being disapproval of it, want to argue about it, want to keep up mess about it, check yourself. This is the time for us to check ourselves. When it seems as though everything is wrong and I am always right, I need to stop and check myself. That's what Paul is telling them. Stop what you're doing. All this argument, all this mess that's going on. People are talking about one another. All this, you can't have no peace. Everything is just, this is a dog-eating world, and everything goes. When it's like that, we need to check ourselves. Well, it's gotten to the point to where ain't nothing is right. Look at verse 6. But I trust that ye shall know that we are not reprobate. What Paul is saying, him and the people that are working with him, God has his hands on them. And by God having his hands on them, they're coming out and teaching and telling the world what God expects of each and every individual. And if we would listen, accept, and become a part, we would make a change in our life. All of us, all around the globe, at some point, got to make a change. You cannot continuously stay the same. I don't care how much you tithe. I don't care how much you spend in the church. I don't care how much you work in the church. If you is not a part of God through Jesus Christ, and you getting out here doing everything else that you want to do, whatever money you putting in there, that's just between you. Because God don't need a quarter. God don't need nothing but you, because he created you, because he loves you. Prior of him loving you, he wants you to be obedient. In any family that is a part of a family, no man wants to pick up or turn on the TV and see that they done picked up his child, or his son, or his daughter, or what have. God is the same way. If you're a child of God, God don't want you out here ripping and running and doing any and everything, and then coming up in the house of his and sitting around and doing whatever you're doing and acting like ain't nothing happened. Examine yourself. That's what it's saying. If everybody that is a part of God, if we all would examine ourselves, the world would be different, because there's a whole lot of There's way more people involved in the house of God than it is those people without in the street. Yeah, here's a lot of sinners. Here's a lot of people that won't even come to church. But there are so many that is in the house of God that doing any and everything. And what God is saying, examine yourself. Check yourself out. Are you inscribed? Are you doing the things that God requires of you? Are you setting good examples? There are ways of doing everything. God wants us to have fun. God wants us to be jolly. But he wants us to do it according to his will. According to his will. Stay inscribed with him. Be about him and his business. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Not having your way. Other words, his your way or the highway. No, his God way or the highway. If we are children of God, we got to show ourselves approval of God so that other people will see. Like I said, let your light shine. When you let your light shine, that's all that matters. See, God don't hold nobody account for what somebody else have done, but he's going to hold you account, especially if you've been chosen to be a part of his. Don't you know if we've been baptized, accepted the hand of God, to be a child of God, we are to set examples to everybody else so that they would come on in? Not get out there and do what they doing. That's giving them the indication that, no, don't come to church, stay on at the house. And you got to come to church. You cannot get salvation at the house. That's why God put up a building, for us to come and worship with one another, to serve with one another, to be about one another. Each and everybody in here got a duty. Each and everybody in the house of God got to do that. That's all over the globe. But God have chose a group of people. And I'm not talking about no race. A group of people that had accepted him as a whole, and that group of people are the people that are going to the other side and be with Jesus. Not those of us who call on the name of Jesus but do what we want to do, but those who call on the name of Jesus and be as a service of Jesus. Because when God got his hands on you, you have a duty to do as a service, and by having that duty to do as a service, God is expecting you to do that. Paul is letting them know it's impossible for me or we to be reprobate, because we are doing what God inquired of us. Other words, when you know for a fact that you are living for God, you are doing what God requires of you, that's all that matters. And you got to hold on to what you know is right. When others choose to do wrong, they got to pay for that, because all of us going to face Judgment Day. You know, this is the way from the Old to the New Testament. All of it is God's word. But most important is the New Testament, because Jesus came on the scene through the New Testament. And when Jesus came on the scene, this is our go-to. We had to go to God through Jesus Christ. This is our way, through Jesus. Jesus taught his disciples. They became apostles. And prior to them becoming apostles, therefore God has his hands on them. They have a duty to do as a servant. And by them doing that duty as a servant, when you get wrong, they must put you in your place. And this is what Paul did with the Greeks in Corinth. but letting them know I have gotten 3 reports about y'all. And I want to let you know anytime that you get 3 reports, that rectify that whatever it is you are wrong, they are wrong. And Paul is putting them in their place by telling them about their ways and their business, about how they're doing things, and it's not right in the sight of God. Paul is letting us know because we are seeing the same thing, and what happened back then is happening today. We got 2 people that are running for president now. I ain't saying now one of them is right. They both got their faults. But I've said this any time, and we know this for a fact, that if you have been charged with a crime, I don't care who you is, you're supposed to go to jail. And a man can stand up and say that the president's supposed to get immunity, and he wrong. In other words, everybody ought to run for president then so you can do what you want to do. Then you stand before on screen, on TV, nationwide, that's crabbing all over the world, and the word heard you say, go up there, I'll meet y'all up there. What happened? This is part of the lesson. Go up there, I'll meet y'all up there. They go up there and tear the White House up, murder. Some people got killed in the midst of that. This man gets charged for rape. Now think about it. He gets charged for rape. He had to be charged because they fined him $550+ million for what he have done. And he walked up out of the courthouse and go campaign and win a state that same day. I'm telling you, if you're not right with God, it's time for us to get right with God because we need God now. If we ever need him, we need him now. I mean, check it out. Then you get on TV. All over in China, people hear you and say the president's supposed to get immunity. Listen to that. But I can go out there and steal a piece of bubble gum, and they'll give me life. Kate Ivory might have the key that locked me up. But I'm just saying. And then this same individual, what's being talked about, might be your next president. All over again. The world is messed up. And if we're going to be a part of God, we better find Jesus. If we're going to be a part of God, we better find Jesus. All kind of stuff is going on. If you got money, you might get by. You ain't got a quarter, I'm going to lock you up. That's what's going on. You think God don't see? What we got to understand, being a child of God, is this. When you wake up in the morning, God is there. Wherever you go, God is there. I don't care where you find yourself, is you in and exhaling, God is there. So what that is telling me, I need to get myself shown up right with God, because one thing I know, I might can hide from y'all. You may not see nothing, but the main source sees it all. And it's bad that we would do anything and everything in front of God's eyesight. Think about it. I don't care what we do, whether we are right or wrong. wherever you at, wherever you find yourself doing, Jesus sees it. And then as soon as you get caught, oh Lord, this, oh Lord. What, you didn't say that when you was doing it 5 or 6 years ago. Think about it. We do what we want to do. We enjoy doing what we want to do. And sometimes we know what we are doing is wrong. We know this. But we laugh and enjoy. But soon as you get caught, you start grieving. Hate. I guess we hate because we got caught. But we ought to be hate because we was wrong from the very beginning. Serve the Lord with all your mind, heart, and soul. Look at verse 7. Now I pray to God. You see what Paul is saying? Because he hadn't met them yet. You see, this is a letter. Paul is still in confinement himself for serving God. This is a letter. And whatever you do, you need to do it in prayer. Now I pray to God that ye do no evil. So in other words, you know, anytime people start debating, quarreling, one thing leads to another, when next thing you know, you start being fighting, shooting, stabbing, or whatever. All that comes behind quarreling and debating. We see it sometimes when these politicians be on TV, debating against one another. Sometimes one want to come from where they at and go over there to the other one and jump on them because they disagree with one another. When you leave God out, there are going to be some disagreement, a whole lot of disagreement. And behind that, sometimes it will cause you to get what you got and do some damage because you disagree with what's going on. Do no evil, not that ye should appear approved. So in other words, Paul is letting them know whether you approve with me or not. You might dislike me because I am telling you all about God and God's ways and what God expects of you. You know, don't nobody want to be straight. It's hard to accept to be put in place, especially when you're old. Children don't want to be straightened out, so I know old folk don't want to be straightened out. Children to tell you, oh, but mama, dad, but son, they don't want to be straight. And we as an adult, we don't want to be straight. We don't want to take a straightening. But Paul is letting them know, let's not fight about it. Let's be reasonable with one another. Let's not fight about it. That we should appear approved, but that ye should do that which is honest. In other words, so even if we do have a lack of understanding, since we are adult, can we talk it, reason it, instead of going through changes and getting all miscarriage? That's what Paul is saying. He's saying this before he get to them, because once he get there, he know how they already is, because there have been reports about what's been going on, that they've been fighting over there. They've been quarreling with one another. They are jealous of one another. They arguing with one another. They can't come to terms with each other. Something is wrong. God is nowhere in sight over there with the Greeks. Everything is going bad there. And so Paul knows that it's time that he must go there. Though we be reprobate. Paul is letting them know it's no way that this could happen with us, because God is on our side and we're doing what God wants us to do. In other words, would a man go to jail for God if he's not about God? Paul was in jail during this time, spending time in jail because those people who didn't like to make a change. You see, when you making money, you out there doing things that putting dollars in your pocket, and somebody come through and tell, they ain't got to, in other words, a hidden dog. And he ain't always got to get hit, but just to throw a rock at a fence where he at, woo, 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 you ain't hit him, but he know you throwed it at him. So in other words, those people what are out there doing any and everything, when they're doing all of this against the will of God, when you speak about it or you talk about it, you ain't got to do it directly, but they understand that, hey, he talking about me. That's what being said. He talking about me. And with them saying that, they're going to do something about it because they don't want you saw that movie Malcolm X, get your hand out my pocket. That man was talking about get your hand out my pocket because he had some money up in there. And that money was illegal. And it's the same way with people that is not about God, and then too, they still want your praises. This man was running for president. He wants your praises, but yet and still he want to do what he want to do. That's the same way it is with people who are violating, doing any and everything, but yet they want you to think that what they're doing is all right, especially in the sight of God. And when you see that people are falling behind folk that are doing wrong, they just as wrong as the person they following. Because right going to follow right and wrong going to follow wrong. That's what's happening. But we being servants of God, what we need to do is find out what God inquire of us and be about that. Nobody question nobody on making you change and be what they want you to be. God not questioning your arm to make you change to be what he wants you to be. But God has sent his son here to die so that we may live and have eternal life. And that is something that we need to accept, that God have given his son that we would live prior of us changing our ways. You got to make a change. You cannot make it in being the same. You see, God don't have to make a change. And just like children ain't got no business telling their parents what to do, we ain't got no business telling God what to do. If God wants us to make a change, we need to make a change. Because you sure can't make it on the other side doing what you want to do. Look at verse 8. For we can do nothing against the truth. Listen at that. See what Paul is saying, those of us that God has his hands on, nothing against the truth, but for the truth. Other words, what Paul is saying, we are all about the truth of God, serving God the way we were supposed to serve God, the way we was chose to serve God. We are doing exactly what God have chose for us to do, and this is part of it, to let you know that all this quarreling, envying one another, think you so high and mighty against others. You have people like that. Some folk think because they got 2 or 3 pennies, they much better than you. But yet and still they had to use the bathroom just like you do. They had to get a towel and a wash rag and clean themselves just like you do. They had to do the same thing that you had to do. But yet they're going to think that they're better than you. But see, you don't worry about things like that when you got God on your side. You know, if I can go out there and jump in my vehicle and make it home, it don't matter whether I got a Cadillac, BMW, as long as I get from A to B. And if I want more, work more. That's just fact. Don't get jealous because some folk, you go to, well, they stay on that job. That's their business. That's why they ride around in the Cadillacs and stuff, because they don't mind working. Don't get jealous because you want to lay around in the house and watch TV while they're at work to get what they want. But because you get up and go to work and get to do what you do to get what you want, don't think you're so high-minded. Because some folk, to tell you the truth, they don't too much want to be rich. They just want to live a good, happy life. But for those of us that like to have a lot of money in the bank, go on cruises and have good vacations and all that, you're going to have to whine and grind to get it. But that's your business. And ain't nobody got no business talking about you going out to make you extra money to do some of the things you want to do. But we got to stay in stride with God. Got to. Verse 9. For we are glad. You see, other words, when Paul is saying that even if we are proven through you at some point, or you think that we are wrong. Even when we are in that manner, when we are weak, in other words, so if you disagree with me, that's okay. And ye are strong, and this also which we wish even your perfection. In other words, if you are right, there are yet ways that you should do whatever you do to prove you're right. Not to get all out of turns, argue, be disturbing. Other words, show your righteousness by doing what's right. Verse 10. Therefore, I write these things being absent, lest being present. So in other words, Paul is saying, at this point, I'm glad I'm absent. Because I already know you. I already know what to expect of you. And by knowing what to expect of you, that you can't take a straightening, and since you can't take a straightening, then I had to try to reach you where I am. I should use sharpness according to the power which the Lord have given me to edification and not to destruction. So in other words, Paul knows that he's right. When you know you are doing what God requires of you, even if it's putting somebody in their place, there's a way for you to do so. But Paul knows that he is right because God has his hands on him as a servant. He is doing exactly what God requires of him as a servant. So it makes him feel good that he could do whatever he do without destruction. And then he said, finally, brother, farewell, be perfect, be of good comfort, be of one mind, live in peace, and the Lord and the God of love and peace shall be with you. So in other words, as long as we who are inscribed with God